Good evening, everybody. Call the meeting to order and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll, please.
Councilmember Canfield.
Here.
Councilmember Chambers.
Here.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Here.
And Mayor DeWort.
I'm here. And before we approve the consent agenda, Mike, you wanted to make a change to item 10?
Yes, Mayor, City Council. We need to add language to the closed session. We need to enter, requesting a closed session to conduct a personnel evaluation of the city manager.
With that, then I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I had one correction in last meeting's minutes under board commission reports. Councilman Chambers' name got put on my statement. I don't want to do that to him, so if you could, you got credit for his statements and mine. Other than that, approved.
Councilmember Phillips.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield.
Yes.
Mayor DeWort.
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to citizen comment for items not on tonight's agenda. Nobody? All right, old business is empty. We'll move to new business. Number 5, item A, North Broadway sidewalk ramp. Michael?
Yes, this item was tabled at the last meeting as council members wanted to gather more information regarding it. Just to just to elaborate the issue, city received a complaint during the North Broadway repaving project about possible removal of sidewalk ramps and lack of accessible handicap ramp in front of Lowell Power. There was accessible handicap parking. There was a concern that we weren't meeting ADA with the ramp there. Having looked at the issue, we went out and evaluated it in full and did not believe there was we did not believe there were any accessibility issues, and they've been met. Since that time, we've looked at the matter. I've had all the council members had an opportunity to understand what the issue in front of them was, and whether or not you want to put in a ramp at the location adjacent to Light and Power. We at the last meeting we talked about some of our options that were available to us, and that that it's really council's decision what they want to do on this. It's from an administrative standpoint, you've met your ADA requirements, and this is not something you need to do. It is a $2,000 expense. However, this is something that the council wishes to do. They're more than welcome to do that. I don't know if any council members will have an opportunity today to go take a look at it. Anyone have any questions? We also have a representative from Prime Newhoff, Chief and Washler here this evening to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
Yes, and I don't know if you're referring to me as the person that made the complaint. I just want to say it was more of an observation than it was actual complaint. And I questioned on some of the things in our last council meeting that that the city did, and I appreciate Rich gave me a call, and Rich, Mike, and Brian from Prime Newhoff went and met, and we went over all the different areas. They explained the different things and why they needed to do those things, and I understand. The only thing that I would say is, and respectfully, we can agree to disagree. The only thing that I would disagree on is why we took out a ramp, the closest ramp that was accessible for handicap to get into the Lowell Light and Power. And I understand that there's other means to get there, and we are in compliance, and that was just my concern of why we took out a viable ramp, the closest ramp, and not replace that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, and I want to thank Mike and Rich. They took the time to meet with a couple of us out there today. It's really helpful to look at it in person. You get a much better visual on what's going on there. Dick Wen, I am so pleased that you are here tonight because you're the expert on this. And although we are meeting the requirements, it's also about a convenience factor also. I think we don't want to spend money unnecessarily. But Dick, what's your input on how that building lays out? Would it be helpful to have something there closer to the door?
Be helpful to have a better elevator there.
Well, we have 2,000 to spend.
I think for convenience, yeah, you make a good point, Greg, that for convenience, obviously they have something closer to the door would be better. Right now, as I understand it, the handicap spaces are in the public parking lot to the south, but you do have a clear entranceway, accessible entranceway, so legally I think you're fine.
Right, no, and Mike is very well versed in this and point out, I don't think we're even considering taking one of our parking spots and converting that to handicap because we have those spots that are reasonably close. But I think without losing any parking spots and spending a little bit of money, we could have a ramp that would be much more convenient for people in wheelchairs or walkers or crutches, whatever. It's just pretty soon I'm going to be in that older generation, or I am there. And the population is aging, and this probably is the last redo we're going to see in the next 20 years in that street, hopefully.
And to be truthful, every time that I've gone to the building, I've gone to the ramp on the north side.
Yeah, the one we took out. Yeah, and there is one that's 15 or 20 feet further, but even the one that was taken out was quite a ways from the door. And I think it would be helpful to have one closer. So thank you for your input on that.
Anybody else on? No? I was with Perry, I wasn't sure why we took that one out, but if you go out there and look at it, you're ramping people into nowhere, into the middle of the street. And you're, 100, 200 yards before you're up to another ramp or out of traffic. And I don't know, just from a safety perspective, I think it's an improvement. I don't necessarily, I think that the ramps that are there are adequate. I don't know that we need to spend money for additional ramps. We already spent money to take one out. That it's questionable, I guess, whether we should have spent it or not. But it makes sense, really, if you go out and look at it. And I think we're in compliance. I think we're supposed to be about saving money. I don't think it's also a high-traffic building. I think when people go there to pay their bills, most of them, I don't know what the percentages, do it online or in the Dropbox or whatever, which is accessible. So I just don't know that. And $2,000 is, would you say those audible alarms were about $500 a piece to fix? And we got a bunch out here that need repaired. You could do 4 of those, but the $2,000 you're spending to...
Yeah, each of the detectable warnings is about $250 to $500. I haven't priced them in a while, but maybe Jason can even answer. Do you know the cost of a detectable warning pad?
I think that's probably fairly close. Whereas it's the concrete work that goes around the tube, so
Yeah.
that's why the $2,000 is there.
Yeah, so we'd estimated on the field it was about $500 with the detectable warnings for each ramp.
So that's 4 of them out here that are already existing, that are being used. They wouldn't be in disrepair if they weren't being used. If they were just sitting there, they'd be fine. I think we're supposed to, we're trying to improve what we already have, which is great. And I don't...
Yeah, they're actually being damaged by the Bobcat that clears the snow, not from these.
Steve, do you kind of got an idea of what the foot traffic is that comes into Lowell Power nowadays since you went to the smart meters? Is it less traffic, more?
Since I've been on Light Power, it is less and less. With that being said, you do have your people that are going to drop off their bill no matter what. It's typically the very beginning of the month, right around the time where our shut-off notice goes out and due date. I would estimate out of 2,800 bill paying ratepayers, 1 out of every 8 to 10 would come in our office, not more than 300, 400.
Have you had anybody complain to you about accessibility of your building?
We've not.
No.
In our conversation today, Mike, when we were down there, we talked about doing, when the other street gets done, and then that corner will have to be re-looked at, right? And
Yeah, we're gonna
have to be brought to code.
We're gonna have to look at that, yes.
So, I think as long as we got that on on the to-do list to start looking at that and doing the improvements on that. And I don't see the sense of spending the money now to put something in we're gonna tear up in the next hopefully year or two.
Well, the new ramp wouldn't be where it's torn up. The new ramp would be
Right, it
close to
would
the
be,
door. that you
obviously,
get.
but it will be addressed in the future. And
Yeah, on the west side versus the east.
yeah, I'd like to thank Rich and Mike for taking the time to walk through everything and explain it today and give us that visual that we needed. And Dick, I appreciate your input. So, do you think it's necessary? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Rich for moving the discussion part of our meeting to the shade also. With that, I would recommend that the city council does not install ramp as we are currently meeting ADA compliance in that downtown area.
All support.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
No, moving forward though, I just want to make sure we do address that up front so we don't do these in the future where we got it right the first time and watching our spending.
Eliminate the surprises.
Exactly.
Sure. And it has been verified, right, that we only paid for
6.
6, not 7. Okay.
Mayor DeBoer?
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
No.
All right, with that, we'll move to number 5, item B, the property at 2560 Bowes Road. Michael.
In 2014, the city acquired the property located at 2560 Bowes for a tax reversion from Kent County. The property was formerly owned by an operator of a Big Boy franchise and was never developed. The property is adjacent to city-owned property whereby Lowell Light and Power utilizes this area for their transmission station. Earlier this spring, we received a request from Ryan Peel, president of Virgin's Broadband, to purchase the property so he can manage the fiber system he provides to customers in this community. The property is currently zoned as general industrial. I explained to him at the time the provision in the city charter pertaining to the sale of city-owned property, which includes the following. The city shall not have the power to purchase, sell, or dispose of any property unless, in case of sale, there shall be at least 2 published advertisements for bid prior to adoption of a resolution for sale or disposal. Such action is approved by the affirmative vote of 4 or more members of the council, and unless, in the case of real estate owned by it, the resolution authorizing the sale, lease, or disposal thereof shall be completed in a manner in which it finally passed and has remained on file with the clerk for public inspection for 20 days before the final adoption of passage thereof, unless in accordance with section 512 of the city charter. After continued discussion, I suggest we approach the city council regarding placing this property for sale. City administration views the use of this property as being utilized for a tax-generating use. While we need to follow the process above, the city has no need for the property. My sense is the city purchased the property to avoid going to the Kent County Land Bank. If developed, the taxes collected would not go to the city but the land bank for a period of time. My experience is normally 5 years. If the property is placed out for bid, anyone can bid, including Virgin's Broadband. The city council could then select any bid they receive that most suits the city and the use of the property. Municipal property must be sold at near market value according to the Michigan Constitution. I have attached information on the property along with what Mr. Peel would like to install on the property if he was awarded the project. And I'm recommending establishing a request for proposal for the sale of 2560 Bowes in accordance with the city charter. Brian unfortunately cannot be here tonight, but his wife Stephanie is here if you have any questions for her.
We're not using it for anything right now? It's just sitting there?
Correct.
With an RFP selling it would generate tax money for us?
Yes.
And Virgin's Broadband is something that a ton of people use, right? So it improve their service as well?
It could, yes. I mean, like I said, we have to include it. We got to take the best use of the property, but.
Sure. But right now it's making $0.
Correct.
If we put an RFP out, we're finally get.
Just
go ahead. No, go ahead.
a concern looking at the aerial map, the property that the park is on now behind Walgreen, that piece almost landlocks that. Are we sure that we're not preventing access to the park by this, or would we split off that little driveway?
I think that's something we still need to figure out. We have looked at that, and it is it's something that obviously we thought about. And it's I don't have a definitive answer for it as of yet,
As long
but
as
we are aware of it.
I would certainly support that. Would a tower go up there then? Is that what would be, or?
No, it would be a building to house the data center.
So it'd be like an office end for you?
No, not an office, that would be where all of our tenant equipment would go. Just like kind of the nerve center. The nerve center, essentially, of the network would be housed there.
And Steve, Light and Power has plenty of property with no need for,
Yeah, Ryan Teachworth and I actually met with Ryan Peel. He had contacted me to begin discussions, and Ryan and I are completely comfortable with the space that we have at Chatham, and we even discussed if they needed to have an easement for a slight driveway on our property, we would be fine with that. Our substation is enclosed with fencing and has security, and we don't have any need for expansion on our property. Our substation is more than enough capacity for the foreseeable future.
And we could get, as the requests come in too, I'd like to involve Jerry Yale in that, because it's his part, right, that's impeding that. So I think, I don't know, I think making money is better than making no money. So I would recommend, I'll make a motion to establish an RFP for the sale of 2560 Bow Street.
I'll support.
Any other questions or discussion? Dick?
Just one point, Mayor, if I could. Mike mentioned the fact that the property needs to be sold at market value or near market value. I think it would avoid any confusion that the request for proposals indicate what the minimum purchase price is that you're looking for the property. And here in this situation, that probably could be established by the city assessor, pending the city assessor.
Okay.
Excellent.
Giving value, then there won't be any confusion.
Sure. Go to that, Michael.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips,
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer.
Yes. Number 5, item C, Light and Power Spending Authority. Steve?
All right. Well, first and foremost, the reason this item is ultimately coming before the city council, and at the end of my memo, I maybe should have written this first, but per chapter 16, section 16.4, purchases and sale of personal property by Board of Lowell Light and Power, the city charter states, subject to the approval of the council, the board shall provide the dollar limit within which purchases may be made by the superintendent without the necessity of board approval. So I can shed some light on the process the Lowell Light and Power went through to get where we're at tonight. During our April, May, and June board meetings, the Light and Power Board discussed policy 5-15, procurement. Within that policy, it allows the superintendent or general manager, which would be me, to spend up to $10,000 without bringing an item to the Board of Lowell Light and Power for approval. Some key conclusions that were made about this policy is this $10,000 limit has been in existence for a considerable length of time, at least 10 plus years, based on my research, the early 2000s. And this $10,000 limit is an arbitrary amount, not really tied to anything. There wasn't, as far as we can tell, any logic for how this amount came up with, other than $10,000 just seems like an appropriate limit. There was a consensus by the board that this limit should be increased because of inflation. It's really eroded the spending authority over time. In addition, this limit has caused inefficiencies in procurement of materials and services, especially with large capital projects and distribution system infrastructure. In your packet is a list of items that Lowell Light and Power has approved, the board has approved within the last 36 months. 23 times critical distribution department related items or large items for a capital project have had to wait till the next Lowell Light and Power board meeting because of their $10,000 limit. So this just kind of provides some backup that we're not just asking the council to increase our limit because we feel like it's a good idea or it's just time. There's actually a reason for it. After much discussion, the board felt that the limit should be tied to a percentage of a fiscal year's budgeted revenue. The city charter states that it has to be a dollar threshold that the general manager has authority. But they thought, let's come to that dollar amount by looking at a percentage of revenue that we're comfortable allowing the general manager to spend. And the reason for this is that year over year, it keeps the board's exposure consistent. If revenue goes up or down, we would review that dollar amount and say, okay, well, if the board's comfortable with, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, 0.6% and revenue goes up, we need to revisit that dollar amount. And this provides sound logic for future boards when making decisions, and it also allows the spending authority to go up as revenue goes up, and generally revenue goes up as the cost of goods and expenses goes up. So it just provides logic going forward with a rationale instead of an arbitrary, just flat dollar amount that's not tied to anything. So after a lot of discussion in 3 board meetings, the Board of Light and Power unanimously is recommending that the superintendent's authority be set to $50,000, which was derived by taking 0.6% of fiscal year 2019's budgeted revenue for approved and/or budgeted capital projects. And then a second tier of $25,000 that's derived by taking 0.3% of fiscal year 2019's budgeted revenue for discretionary purchases that still fall within the budget. Does that make sense? Furthermore, at our last board meeting, if the council were to approve this, the Light and Power Board has directed me to still provide a list of purchases that I would approve or have approved of over $10,000 so that the Light and Power Board can transparently see what I've approved, if they need to ask questions about why I went with a certain vendor or what the other quotes that I received were. So the ultimate recommendation is for the City Council to increase the Lowell Light and Power Superintendent's maximum spending authority to $50,000 for budgeted and or approved projects and $25,000 for discretionary purchases / items that still fall within the budget.
You're just going to review that once a year?
Every year, we'll review what our total revenue is budgeted for the next year and say, okay, 0.6% of budgeted revenue falls at, maybe it's $60,000. If there's a significant increase, we would still need to go back to the City Council to get that new dollar amount approved. We're only asking for the dollar amount here, but that, how the dollar amount was derived gives us a way to determine if it should be reviewed or changed in the future or brought back to council. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Steve, is that $50,000 per purchase?
Correct.
And then you have a limitation of how many purchases you can make at $50,000, whatever the budget allows you? Where does that cap go? You did 10 of them, that's $500,000 that you could spend. Is there a cap that the board has decided that you can spend of that, or those capitals?
That $50,000 has to be for a project or capital expenditure that's already been approved.
Okay.
So if there's a project, new construction for $450,000, and there were transformers that priced at $35,000, $40,000, and $45,000, those would be 3 separate purchases as we go out for quotes to multiple different vendors. So to answer your question, that would be 3 separate different items I could approve.
Harry, the board is comfortable with the changes?
We've had a lot of discussion, and I think that's why we put in there, for he's going to bring back things for us to review. Currently, the way it is set up, we're just trying to make Lowell Light and Power more efficient. If there's something that comes up and we have to make that purchase and it's 2 days after our board meeting and it's critical, the general manager can come to the chairman of the board, we can make that decision and they can move forward. But again, we just think it's for ongoing that it should be, again, tied to revenue and
a lot of this is we approve our operating and capital budget in May, and then we go to the Light and Power Board with an engineering service proposal with a detailed list of how much a project is going to cost. So the engineering service proposal gets approved. And then we still typically have to go back for items within the engineering service proposal, even though we already committed to the capital budget, we committed to the project, and then we still have to have this routine task of going back again. So it eliminates that third step.
And those capital improvements are also brought to the city council at the beginning of the year and have to be approved by you also. So there's, I mean, again, that number of that 50,000 is, you know, we're committed, or you've looked at it, here's this big project that we're going to do. We've already approved it. The thinking is, why do we need to come back? And it's a $450,000 project that we're doing. Why are we coming back every time for critical purchases? And that's what we're trying to do. Is I think he shared with you the information of how many critical purchases, different things that we've had to wait on.
So if you're going to do something critical right now, the day after your meeting, you're waiting 29 days.
Yeah, depending on the timing, up to 4 to 5 weeks.
And I think that's a good thing to keep projects moving.
Mayor,
Yeah, sure.
obviously I don't get involved in Light and Power's operations, but I think the policy that they have is a good sound policy. Something I would ask the council is we administratively have some issues with our own purchasing policy, and some of those are could be dollar amount as well. We've had some issues come up. Biggest thing is emergency situations for us when we need to get resources. Our purchase policy now doesn't technically give us, latitude, although we have followed we can justify it with our auditors, but we need to clear up that policy as well. Also, there's just some the ways we operate. I think our policy needs to be cleaned up to accommodate that. So there's something that Rich and I have had numerous conversations about, and we'd like to possibly maybe, we probably have to sit down, but we'd like to make our policy kind of align Light and Power's policy, because we address the same issues they do in a sense. They're a utility. We operate technically three utilities in the city. Also just the needs to run a city. So it's something that I don't want to necessarily slow down their process, but it's something that I would like to see. I'd like to see the city mirror this the best we can.
I think it's something you need to look at. If theirs is 10 years old at a minimum, right? 10 years old, $10,000 isn't what it was 10 years ago. So I think that it'd be a good idea for us to look at it at a city level. That's something we can put together.
Yeah, give us some time.
A month or so. Sure.
Yeah, give us a little time, but we would like to take that up here pretty soon.
Okay. Anything else for Steve?
No, I think Lowell Light Power's in a great place. They're doing a wonderful job. Rates are 20-25% below consumers. It's a bargain for our residents here, and we have very reliable power. Just great performance by them. They've got some great hires. I think they're in a great spot. The board's doing a great job.
Thanks, Greg.
I would make a motion that the city council increase the Lowell Light Power general manager's maximum spending authority to $50,000 for budgeted and or approved projects and to $25,000 for discretionary purchase items.
I'll support. Any other questions or discussion?
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer?
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
All right, item number D, AT&T right-of-way permit.
Yes. AT&T's right-of-way permit is about to expire in September. The city has had a continuous agreement with AT&T that has been renewed every 5 years since 2003. The attached agreement is for AT&T to operate our right-of-ways. Payments made to the city for the use of our right-of-way have been set by the Metro Act. We can't dictate what those costs are. The state law dictates them for us. That being said, this has been something that continues for a number of years. I'm recommending renewal of the AT&T right-of-way permit with the city of Lowell until December 5, 2023.
Any questions on that? It's very common, we've been doing it for 100 years. carries. I will recommend renewal of the AT&T right-of-way permit with the city of Lowell until December 5th, 2023.
I'll support.
Discussion.
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
and Councilmember Phillips.
Yes.
Very good. Board and commission reports, Greg.
The Parks and Rec Commission met on 19th, and Heather Wood Gramza from the library came in and presented to us that they have been selected. They're the only library in Kent County that is going to do a story walk where they put up cards to tell a story, and they're looking at a couple of the parks, trying to decide which one to do that, and they will be doing that this summer. Love Week Impact Church had 606 volunteers. I didn't get an hour count yet. Last year it was 2,000 hours, but a lot of projects around town helping, and great thing for the community. Showboat is in the final stages of design, getting wrapped up, getting ready to get that project out for bid, and that covers the Parks and Rec meeting.
Very good. Mark?
I have nothing.
Mr. Salzweedl?
I have nothing.
Mr. Phillips?
I have some information from the Historic District Commission. Permit applications for 318 East Main Street signage, 207 East Main signage and awning, 104 West Main signage, and then some project updates, 301 West Main Larkin painting, 215 West Main Ability Weavers painting, roofing, and windows, 101 West Main David Reed brick repairs, and 211 West Main Dr. Regan roofing. And that's all I have right now.
I have nothing. Sounds like fire authority is probably going to be canceled this month. Usually in the summer, there's a lot fewer items to address, so we'll probably meet again in August. That makes it your turn, city manager's report.
Yes, a couple items to report. The North Broadway project is, they're in the paving project, the South Broadway project. They're in the paving stages now. Today they installed the base coat for Broadway Street and the parking lot, and they're anticipating having the second coat sometime next week in time before Riverwalk. And to my knowledge, harvest is going to be beginning probably next week sometime as well. So, or the week of the 9th sometime. So we should be able to meet that. There's a couple other issues that more towards the power installation over there that they're gonna take some time, but that won't impact the road being complete for the parade moving forward. And they've been working quite a bit lately on it. So I appreciate their efforts on that. In your memo this week, there were a number of, I shared with you a number of articles about infrastructure issues here in Michigan. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to read it. They're all on the MLive. Very informative. Just kind of, I think they give a very good portrayal of what is happening in our state and what the state, the cities, the general public are dealing with a lot of our infrastructure needs. So I hope everyone in the council had an opportunity to read those stories. We also, last Thursday, we had the DDA meeting. We had a couple of interesting items. We looked at probably installing some planters in the downtown, and that issue was tabled because it was pretty costly, and didn't think the DDA should have to take that on themselves. However, one of the things we did talk about, and we're going to start looking at, is possibly putting bridge boxes on the bridge, flower planters on the bridge with irrigation. It's something that they would be, I think they would be inviting. It would make that area a little bit more inviting, and something that we're looking to see what we can do. Get if we have to get approval from MDOT or anything of that nature, but it's something we're looking at. We're also trying to finalize the downtown master plan. We went over it briefly on Thursday, and one of the things I'm trying to do is we just got the report back from Dan Burden from when he came and conducted the walking audit, and trying to place the information, the recommendations he gave us in the plan to accommodate into the downtown plan. Some of the recommendations that Dan made are pretty attainable, things we can do. Some I'll just call them, for lack of a better word, pie in the sky. But one of the interesting things that he did talk about was, one of the things that really jumped out at me was trying to utilize the B side of the Main Street buildings and enhance those. And I think that's something that we might want to start looking at as the DEA. And one of the other things also is when you come into downtown, trying to make the downtown more inviting as you come in from both sides. When you come into downtown now, it's kind of all of a sudden you're here and there's really nothing engaging to as you come into the downtown to make it look like a downtown. So that's something that the downtown plan would look at. So we're still working on that, and hopefully can have the master plan wrapped up here pretty soon. It was something that was started before I got here, and it's just something that never's been finished, and we're hoping to get that complete. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to appointments. Do we have an application from Mr. Hodges for board review?
We received it today.
Does anybody need to see that before we make an appointment, or do his resume is pretty?
Have we done a background check on that?
Yeah. He's been out for a year almost.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we got a good police department, so if we go south, we'll get it taken care of. I would move that we appoint Jim Hodges to the board of review to fill one of those spots.
I'll support.
All right, and we have no other applications, correct, for any of them?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, very good. With that new appointment, I will have a consensus. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, welcome back. We'll get you on something else here later. Council comments, Greg.
Nothing.
Mr. Chambers.
The only thing I gotta do is copy with council next Saturday. I think we're gonna cancel that just because there's a lot going on. And
Holiday.
yep.
Okay. Mr. Phillips.
I just want to thank all staffs and departments, excuse me, for their hard work and dedication, and, you know, they're doing their due diligence and trying to make this a better place, so I appreciate everything.
Thank you, Mr. Salzweedl.
Well, we won't be back until after the River Festival goes on, so I encourage everybody to get out and attend and participate. Have a good one.
Very good. Mike and Ryan and I, Ryan Teachworth and Wayne Power, went out to Idaho to visit Lighthouse and see their wastewater facility on site at their corporate office. And it was, what's the word? Productive. We'll call it productive. It was very easy to eliminate the doubt about this system working out. I mean, they have a great facility over there, and they've done a lot in a lot less space than they're gonna have here. They're experienced, they're using all their knowledge. I think it's a great company. They gave us a tour of their main plant there, which was pretty nice. And then they took us to lunch, I think trying to get us to stay, which was super successful because I think we all had a hard time coming back from that. But it's nice out there, they do a lot. I was very impressed with how happy the employees were to be there. Like, we went there on Wednesday in the middle of a work week, beautiful outside, and they were happy to be at work. And I think that we have that here with Lighthouse. So I'm glad to see that we're working together to make an already successful company more successful. So thanks for putting that trip together. And Riverwalk Festival, we will be, I think, you're already going with the police, but I think a few of us will be on the floats. Cliff and I will be having a dance competition. And that's all I have. I'll look for a motion now to move to closed session for city manager evaluation.
I'll make a motion that we go to closed session.
I'll support.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor DeBoer?
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Councilmember Phillips?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Canfield?
Yes.
Very good.